I spent the first 3 years just reading all the books under the sun, watching all the YouTube videos, all the podcasts, but so much information just got me all confused. I was following wrong advice. I was going to state agencies. I was introducing myself in the wrong way. I was doing viewings and then offering half of the asking price. Someone came to me and said, look, I have a blog that I want to sell. Can you help me finding a buyer? And at the beginning, I thought, I don't have a clue, to be honest, but let me put it across to a couple of people. Managed to sell it. Our regular deals, the average fee is between 15 and 25. I focus as well on very high ticket kind of operations. Those are an absolute one-off when they happen. Something like this across the line is 200K for the business. What is your passion now doesn't have to be your passion in the future. I was in charge of looking after 500 high-risk cardiac patients a year. It was a real passion for me. But eventually I realized that long-term it wasn't going to give me what I needed. Things evolve as you get to know yourself better. What matters to you, what is more important, where you want to be in the long run. Find what you like, but don't think that that is going to be their thing.
Mark your calendars. The 2025 Property Developer Show is coming to 5 major cities across the UK, bringing the best service providers and developers together under one roof. On the 5th of March, we kick off in the first show at Milton Keynes, followed by Bristol on the 30th of April, Birmingham on the 16th of July, and then we're heading north to Manchester on the 10th of September, followed by our final stop in Newcastle upon Tyne on the 15th of October. Don't miss out on connecting with other developers, service providers, and industry leaders. Visit propertydevelopershow.co.uk to book your free ticket today. Welcome to another episode of the Property Developer Show, the podcast. Today, I'm joined by Antonio, who is an investment agency. He's the better half of Aidan Nesbitt, who's obviously been on the podcast, and that's a business marriage, not a civil or a legally binding marriage. Well, technically, I suppose business marriage is probably
yes. I think it's as close as it gets, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's a bit like a marriage sometimes.
Yes, I talk to him 24/7, pretty much. First person that I talk to in the morning, and sometimes the last as well.
Yeah, spend more time with him than your own actual family.
Yes, definitely. Most of the time, anyway.
Yeah. Perks of having a business partnership, I guess.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So, diving straight into, I suppose, the investment agency side, how did you start with that idea and how has it developed into what it is today?
I fell into sourcing almost by mistake. I wanted to start investing in property. I was working at the NHS at the time in cardiology. I didn't see working there for the very long term. I had my parents as an example. My mom was a nurse in Spain. My dad was a teacher. Over a period of like 25 years, they bought a few properties. So I could see just when they retired just a few years ago, how with the normal pension in Spain and some cash flow from the properties, that they could have a very lovely lifestyle. They don't splash. They're not those type of people, but they can go to a restaurant and not have to look at the bill really. Mm-hmm. They can travel as much as they want. So I thought, man, they did it pretty well. They weren't sophisticated as to say that they didn't have a proper property strategy, but over a period of 20-25 years, they bought a few buy-to-lets. Mm-hmm. So I thought, I need to get going in something similar. Otherwise, I'm gonna be stuck in a 9 to 5 every single day for the rest of my life, and that didn't sound too appealing, to be honest. I've always been the kind of person that I like to feel free, mm-hmm. and I love to travel, and having to only travel certain amount of days per year in a very structured way, having to ask permission on when to go on holiday, that didn't sit right with me, I have to say. And so property was a great way. I realized it was a great way to do this. I had tried different kind of businesses in the past, but I was just winging it, not knowing what I was doing, and I reached FOCO, if I have to say. I have to be honest. But someone passed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and like so many of the people that I know, it kind of put like a little seed in my head, mm-hmm. and I realized properties it seems to be the way. Mm-hmm. So started getting educated in property, most of it self-educated. Eventually, I got a coach. I say hi to Charlie, top guy. We're really good friends. who helped me take things to the next level, because I spent the first 3 years just reading all the books under the sun, watching all the YouTube videos, all the podcasts, but so much information just got me all confused, I have to say. I was very, very keen. I put a lot of time into learning, but I was following wrong advice for the most part. I was going to state agencies. I was introducing myself in the wrong way. I was doing viewings and then offering half of the asking price. Shit like that, basically. Things that you only do when you don't know what you're doing, really, you know? So after I started working with Charlie, we kind of put more of a strategy in place. And by that time, I had been networking quite heavily. So I knew quite a lot of people in property that bought and sold. And even though my initial strategy was going to be to acquire, to hold, someone came to me and said, look, I have a blog that I want to sell. Can you help me finding a buyer? And at the beginning, I thought, I don't have a clue, to be honest, but let me put it across to a couple of people, and managed to sell it. And then every time that I was networking, I mentioned that story, and someone said, oh, I have a portfolio. And I didn't manage to sell that one, but I got an offer on the table and didn't complete in the end. But that gave me the confidence, and we kind of changed directions in the strategy and focused on the sourcing side of things. I had only known people that were sourcing single units, and they were the most stressed people in property that I had ever met. They were running around around the city all day, and dealing with cowboy builders and old school landlords and all day, and problems, and that didn't seem appealing at all, I have to say. But because these deals that I had been working on were higher ticket, the fees were quite a lot higher. The work was pretty much the same, really, or even less sometimes, because you deal with more of a savvy investor that they know the figures and the numbers are what matters, rather than the emotional side of dealing with landlords. So we decided to go in that direction, and that's how things started. And it hasn't been kind of a straight line, as it never is really in business.
No.
But it's been an exciting adventure so far.
Good. Going back to what you said about sort of 3 years, getting educated, reading all the books under the sun, and then going into estate agents and sort of taking the wrong approach. I'm going to ask two parts to this question, but the first part of this question is, what do you think you were doing wrong that obviously you've realised now in hindsight what you would have done differently?
Yeah, I was just saying the wrong terminology. I was, when you've been in the game for enough time, you realize when someone is newbie. I mean, right away, we had a first meeting with some international clients not long ago, and they were saying all the time OPM, and that shows that they are just getting started. And we knew, but they had been educated with this kind of terminology. I'm going to be using OPM for my deals.
And for people that don't know what OPM is?
OPM is other people's money. So they're going to use private individuals to lend them the money to buy the deals, which you normally say, I use private investor funds. Or something along those lines. But using those kind of terminologies are give away that you come from a course or you've been, listening to some gurus most of the times anyway. So it's not that I was just talking about on the state agencies with this kind of terminology all the time, but I was kind of, I was getting started. I was trying to get myself kind of known to them, but obviously they could see that I didn't have the experience behind me,
Yeah. I think you can, as an estate agent, you can tell.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all about confidence, isn't it? And
yeah,
I think you can get a sense. Like when I speak to an agent, I think maybe even sometimes they think I'm just an arrogant investor because of how I might put in an offer before I even view it, and they'll be like, "Oh, you can't do that." I'm like, "Yes, I can. Done it multiple times, and I bought off the back of doing that."
Get annoyed
and they're like, but I suppose having that level of confidence, someone that's just starting out, be like, "Oh, okay, I'll view it first." And I suppose you don't push back in some regards, and I think obviously taking that approach early on. My second part of the question, which leads quite nicely into this, do you think you have to go through that process to get to where you've ultimately got to?
I don't think you have to be honest. If you get close to someone that is already doing it and they can hold your hand through those initial periods where you are understanding the basics, you will save a lot of time and a lot of effort, right? For example, another thing that I used to do to the state agents, I would put an offer forward and they said, "Can we see proof of funds?" I would not get back to them because I didn't have the proof of funds at the time. I didn't have the funds. That was a problem to go through once I had the offer accepted. But a couple of them pushed back and they would not get it accepted, or they wouldn't put it across to the vendor unless I show the proof of funds. So again, those are kind of mistakes that if you have been working or you've been shadowing alongside someone for some time, those little things you just don't make those same mistakes, and that's why I remember very early on I met a local developer, and I talked to him about a deal that I have found, and he said to me, "Look, if you want to learn the ropes, I am very happy to show you. I am looking for sites all the time. I've been developing for more than 20 years. I've done more than 200 projects, and if you want, I'm happy to get you under my wing, and I'll show you everything I know, and you help me find insights." So I said yes, of course. So I kind of volunteered for him for 2 years, and that was easily 20 hours a week, and that was invaluable, really, really invaluable. So I would recommend that to anybody, really.
Is get that sort of free advice or insights, not advice. I suppose it would be advice as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, kind of mentorship in a way. Yeah.
Is that sort of something that you have incorporated in your own investment business, like, giving people that opportunity to work with you guys to learn how to do it? Is that something that...
Yeah. We have grown the team quite a bit in the past few months. I mean, think about it. A couple of years ago, it was just myself, and now we are a team of 8. So we've been growing, especially in the past 6 months. And the way that we get people onto the team now is we give them the flexibility to still be in a job or be doing something else, and spend minimum 10, 15 hours a week with us, where we kind of mentor them, we hold their hand, we show them everything when it comes to sourcing. And we show them how to find deals, how to find buyers, how to find sellers, and everything. And we basically look after the back end of the deals. Once a deal is agreed, we take it off their hands. Well, to be honest, they only have to bring it to the table. Bring a deal to the table, then we match them with one of our buyers, and then we do all the sales progression. And they will get a big chunk of the fees, and that way, over a period of time, they can leave the job and go full time. So yeah, it's kind of a way for them to transition into property sourcing full time.
I think that's personally the best way to do it. It's, for me, I didn't know all these creative strategies even existed when I was sort of getting into property. All I knew was like building sites and invest in property, that sort of way. I didn't realize all these creative strategies sort of worked. And I thought at the time, the best way to learn about property was just literally trying to work for anyone that operated a building site. So I was like laboring for, brickies, joiners, working as an apprentice. Then I was like, right, moving into lettings. So I got that kind of industry expertise by kind of doing it. And then I realized I could use other people's money to invest in property, which completely blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I'd been saving my arse off for like 3 or 4 years. And I just was like, what have I even been doing this past 3 or 4 years? But I sort of managed to get to that point by offering myself for free to these people that I knew were successful in the local sort of area. And I, or the success that I've had over the recent years to those people that were willing to strike a deal, which is obviously what you're alluding to there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because someone that has been in the game for some time and the business is growing, normally the resources when it comes to time is quite limited. And if you come in with a lot of energy, with a lot of passion to learn, and you're willing to put the time and the effort, it's a win-win for everybody. You can start making money, you can start learning a lot about property, you can save yourself a lot of time from, just by learning from someone that has been there, has done it. And you provide the other person a new way of getting leads, for instance, So it's a win-win, absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think to look at it from the perspective of giving that free advice and obviously in reciprocation, having that service provided, as sort of time's gone on, I've kind of become that person that now people come to me and say, Scott, how do I do this? And because I am so busy doing my own stuff, it's almost impossible to try and help everyone in the best possible format that I can. So it's having that, I suppose, and it's not about, what can I gain from you? It's about a two-way street.
Absolutely.
And creating a win-win, and it's having someone approach you. And this is probably a message for, people that want to approach you or I and want that advice. What can you do to, create more time in our business so that we can then provide you with advice or guidance or whatever it is that you're sort of looking for? Because a lot of people are trying to break out of this matrix or whatever you want to call it and level up and become successful in property. So I guess that kind of that outside the box thinking, willingness to work for free,
that's key, absolutely key.
100%. I couldn't agree more.
Because I'm sure that it happens to you as it happens to me. A lot of people reach out on social media and they say, how can I get to do what you're doing? How can I get started? Blah, blah. And it's funny because sometimes people that, I've known for years, they see what I'm doing now and they say, I want to be doing the same. What do you recommend me to do? I know them personally, right? I want them to win. So I spend the time to tell them, okay, what I would do is prioritize this, and that. Come on, get yourself started. Let's have a chat in another month. Let's see where you are. It comes the month and they haven't done anything, And one of the things that I say, you need to start networking, go to networking events. At the beginning, you'll feel very awkward. You will feel out of place, that everybody around you knows their shit about property and you don't know crap. But that's where we all start, you need to go through that awkwardness. And once you've done 20 of them, you'll feel so comfortable, like you are, in your living room, pretty much. But you have to get started. And so go ahead. But then is when you see who actually wants it and who says that they want it, So it's you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared to get out of your comfort zone. I mean, it's the bare minimum, isn't it? I mean, what the hell?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could. I don't know if you find it as well, but I'll speak to certain people, and I straight away I'm like, I know you'll be successful. Just their approach to how they initiate conversations.
You can see in like a second.
Yeah. And I think it's that. I think a lot of people struggle to find what their passion is, and once you find that, everything else is almost irrelevant, and you get laser focused into that, delivering that one individual goal.
I completely agree, but at the same time, I believe that what is your passion now doesn't have to be your passion in the future. I've had different passions. I mentioned that I was in the NHS, and I at some point I was managing a team of clinical and non-clinical staff, and I was in charge of looking after 500 high risk cardiac patients a year, and it was a real passion for me. But eventually I realized that long term it wasn't going to give me what I needed, as I explained before. And before working for the NHS, my passion was football coaching. And I coached for Liverpool for the academy for 4 years. I coach in the international soccer schools, and they send me abroad many times. And I had different coaching jobs as well. So that was my passion back then. But things evolve as you get to know yourself better, what matters to you, what is more important, where you want to be in the long run, really, isn't it? So it's important to, find what you like, but don't think that is going to be the thing. And that's why we can go on a rabbit hole now, but that's why the education system, the standard education system is so freaking wrong. Because how are you meant to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life? Age 17, 16 is fucking ridiculous, right? I mean, I studied sports science, and yeah, I used my degree, but I'm doing something that is not related whatsoever, right? And deciding at that age what you want to do for the rest of your life, and in this country in particular, getting yourself in crazy ass debt to be able to study and to do that, I think is very wrong. The wrong approach, really, because when you are that age, you don't know yourself. You don't know what you want. You don't know, your real passions. You don't know crap, to be honest. Not even 10%, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I would say in your 20s, you get to know 40%. In your early 30s, you get to the 60%. And I am past that. And I think I'm getting to the 70%. You know what I mean? I still don't know everything. I'm still figuring things out. But I know a lot more about, my priorities, my values, what matters to me, compared to when I was 17. I mean, it's another person altogether. That's why I always tell people that don't worry about changing careers. Don't worry about changing directions. Don't worry about, but I've spent so many years at university. I have a degree, I have a master's, and what is that going to keep you caged for the rest of your life in a place that doesn't give you the fulfillment that you could get following something that maybe doesn't have the bring you the same money, or doesn't have the same kind of societal approval. Just because your parents want you to, or whatever, or you tell yourself that you have to. That's a bit bullshit, isn't it? That's why I always kind of encourage people to keep searching and apply a lot of passion, be super proactive, work hard to get what you want to do. But if at some point you realize that that's not your passion, look at all the alternatives, because there will be others.
I think people get sunk cost fallacy, don't they? That's what they've put all this time and effort,
absolutely,
money, and then they think, right, well, this is it for forever. And I suppose if you're entrepreneurial minded, you typically aren't afraid to just completely change. I think it comes down to self-confidence thing. It's having that sort of foresight and ability to go, I will literally back myself in any scenario to deliver. And I mean, the education system doesn't teach that sort of mentality. It's like, you've got to turn up at this time, you've got to do your test, you've got to revise for the test, you've got to do assignments. It's all very structured, and it an activity creates an outcome, and you know what the outcome's going to be. Whereas entrepreneurship, activity might not produce the outcome that you thought it would, but you'd learn from that scenario, go back to doing the activity. How can we perfect it and get better?
It's real life practice, isn't it?
It's falling over, getting back up. How did I fall over? Why did I fall over? And then going again. So just on that point then, so kind of on that passion piece, obviously you've kind of done a lot in your sort of career and what have you. What advice would you give to someone that was maybe unsure of their passion or trying to find their passion? What sort of advice would you give to them?
Just, I'm very much into self-development. I'm sure you are as well. And I've read a lot of books about this and about business and about mindset and everything. And I remember a book from Grant Cardone. I think it was the 10X. I've read all his books a few times. But I think he kind of has a questionnaire. And one of the questions is, what made you feel super excited when you were like a teenager, or when you were younger and you thought how my future I want my future to look like? And at that age, you don't see the barriers, the societal kind of complications. You just dream about something, and that made me think when reading that I remember when I was about 13 or 14. I thought to myself, I'm going to buy, or I'm going to open a business, and I'm going to make it sustainable enough. I'm going to live in the hands of someone, and I'm going to travel the world. And I was maybe 12, 13. And that was kind of my dream. And of course, then you get a bit older, and you fall into the trap of you need to go to university, you need to do that, and it kind of stayed on the back of my mind. But that's actually what I was dreaming about, So sometimes it's where you were little, you really had a very good clue of who you are, what are your priorities, what you want to do in your life. But again, society and the way people just navigate lives, just kind of shut it down, and you realize that it was unrealistic, or too hard, or I need to keep my feet on the ground, etc. Which is absolute bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose it's just kind of tapping into what you used to enjoy as a kid, or kind of trying to, I suppose, what interests have you got, I guess, and figuring out.
Yeah, what activities do you do now, or you have done in the past, that time just flew by, and you forgot about eating, you forgot that it was 1 a.m., and you could be doing it for all night long if you could. That kind of thing is very linked with your passion.
Yeah, makes sense. So in terms of, I guess, kind of, you figured that passion out, taking the first steps, as we've kind of alluded to, it's getting that education piece and getting the experience. Is that what you sort of would agree with?
Yeah, and these days it's very easy because there are a lot of kind of communities online. If what you want is, I don't know, to launch an e-commerce, you will have a lot of people that you can network, you can learn from, you can do, online or offline kind of meetups, and potentially get a mentor in the space. By the way, I always recommend people to really do the due diligence with mentors, speak with people that have worked with them as mentees, at least 3 people, jump on a call with them, tell them how is this person, how is he working with them, did they have your best interest at heart, what have you achieved, just to really understand what that mentor is going to give you. But I'm super big in mentors and being in the right group, in a good community that can take you to the next level, definitely.
Just very quickly interrupting this episode, have you got a property deal in mind? Want to build or grow your portfolio but unsure how to obtain funding? No problem. At Roma Finance, they love to lend. The borrower first approach means Roma deliver flexible, tailored solutions that accommodate the diverse needs and experience of developers across residential and commercial projects. With a flexible criteria, Roma take time to understand each borrower's unique circumstances. Roma's attentive team are always equipped to handle and take on your requests. They will guide and support you throughout the property journey. Colleagues and customer relations are the beating heart of their business. Don't forget to explore Roma's website, romafinance.co.uk, for helpful resources, including articles and case studies to guide your financial decisions. Remember, Roma Finance love to lend. Your property goals are only a call or email away. Now back to the episode. Just kind of going back to obviously the early days of your sourcing business, and you were kind of doing things wrong, and then you kind of figured out, right, there's this new route that we're sort of taking. How did you kind of, obviously what you've explained, San, sort of felt like, or to me, it seemed like a natural progression into where you are today. But what was kind of the, I suppose, growing pains of getting to where you are today from, that initial networking event, got this portfolio, tried to sell it, unsuccessful, then realizing actually this is a business model in itself, to then obviously now where you are today? What's kind of been the growing pains, what's kind of gone into that process?
So I was at that time a one-man band, and I was just keeping myself crazy busy, but without a real system, right? It was just me, and I'm not the most organized person in the world, right? I love to go out and speak to people. I love to build relationships. I find that really exciting to do that and get to know people and try to help them. But I was not very organized, so everything was a one-off. Everything was hit and miss. I didn't have a system. I didn't have a process. Forget about that. I had a CRM that every now and again I used to fill. Sometimes I didn't. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking things in the most serious way as a real business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas I was putting all the work, I can tell you that. But it looked more like I was just a one-man band, just winging it pretty much, right? And that's why when Aidan was here, he mentioned that we started kind of working together on a service, rent-to-rent service accommodation kind of business. I joined his business for a little bit, and we realized that we work really well together. He keep my feet on the ground. He told me, no, you cannot do that. No, we need to be more careful about this and about that. And I really like working with him from the get go. We saw that we got on really, really well. And by the way, by then we had already been friends for a good couple of years, or a year and a half. We used to go climbing together all the time, and we knew each other really well. But on a business perspective, that was kind of the beginning. And then I asked him to come into the sourcing business because I knew what he would bring to the table. He would bring some sense in a way and some structure. And that's exactly what happened. So we started working on systems and processes and making things a lot more predictable. Because in a business, you have to predict what's going to happen next, isn't it? Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, you cannot rely on what's going to come, because it's never guaranteed if you just do it without a real plan in place. So since then we've been working really hard on getting things nailed when it comes to strategy, when it comes to our type of clientele, how we want to serve them well, how we want to scale long term, and so fast forward to now, we're a team of 8, and we hope that on the next 2-3 years we can remove ourselves from the day-to-day operations and focus on other stuff.
Yeah, it makes sense. In terms of I guess the approach that both of you bring to that sort of business, I guess from my conversations with you and Aid, you're more the big picture thinking, Aid's more the methodical side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sort of you both beat the drum, but in different ways. How do you sort of find that balance between the two of you?
Really good, to be honest. We've never argued once, right? But we contradict each other all the time, or at least we have different opinions. But I think it's fantastic when there are no egos involved. That's what the business needs. We bring 2 different perspectives to the table, and he's more risk averse. He's more methodical, and I'm more open to taking big risks and think too big sometimes, right? Whereas it's great to have big ambitions, but for the sake of them, sometimes it's not the best way forward, right?
Yeah.
So we are all the time in conversation about anything that we need to do, but yeah, he kind of focus on the day-to-day operations more than anything, and I am more free to just explore big one-off opportunities, which it works really well for me. That's where I thrive. For example, recently I was in Spain twice. In 2 weeks, I went there twice. One of our institutional clients, he invests in Spain in a very particular kind of niche in the Spanish market, and I had made some contacts in Spain that they work in this niche, and I just said, come on, let's do a meeting there. So we went to Madrid and we have a couple of meetings. It might lead somewhere, it might not lead somewhere. You never know. But I like to chase opportunities, but always taking into account that the day-to-day business is going well and growing, and it has my attention as well. But I am free to explore other things, and I focus as well on very high-ticket kind of operations. Those are an absolute one-off when they happen, and you cannot rely on them at all. But when they happen, everybody's happy.
Yeah, of course.
For instance, I've been working on a number of deals. One of them is a 10 million block in London.
Nice.
Still is potentially happening, but most likely it's not going to happen. But some complications at the end. But yeah, if something like this cross the line, is 200K for the business.
Yeah.
Whereas our regular deals, the average fee is between 15 and 25, 30, something like that, which is still great. Don't get me wrong, it's still fantastic.
Yeah, better than a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, but if you get 3-4 times a year, something more like 200K, I mean, you cannot complain, can you?
No. I think when Aidan was on the podcast, we were sort of talking about the feast and famine scenario and changing the model. And it's interesting, the conversation that we're having versus the conversation that me and Aid had. And I think that balance between the two of you, you know, your kind of mindset and the kind of, I suppose, the passion side. I'm not saying Aid's not passionate about what he does, but more like, you know, you're the kind of sprinting ahead, and Aid's kind of like behind you, just picking the pieces up and like, okay, that works. Let's do that.
Yeah, pretty much. You describe it really well.
Yeah,
I would just keep pushing, and leave a trail of you know, like a lot of destruction behind me.
Yeah.
Whereas he makes sure that I don't go faster than I can afford to, and that everything is in place. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we work well together.
Absolutely. So yeah, he was sort of alluding to the kind of the 15 to 25,000 stuff. That's kind of like the cash flow stuff, and the one-off projects, the £10 million blocks of apartments. That's like
well, no, actually, the 15 to 25 tend to be more the value add blocks.
Sure. Okay.
Sometimes we've got it to 50K, but more or less value add blocks. The single unit side of things, that's more like, I would say the average fee maybe is like between 8 and 12K.
Okay.
And that is the cash flowing thing. That's the scalable side of the business. The portfolio building service that we provide to you know, VC professionals and business owners kind of scenario. But the value add blocks, and I'll give you an example, for apartment block in Liverpool, is very tired, completely like very under-rented, sorry. So our client will buy it just a little bit below market value, will do a refurbishment, will increase the rents to a normal standard market rent, and you know, that's what works for them in the strategy. So those are the ones that are lumpy, and we don't close as regularly as the single units. That's why we want to have them both. But what I do is kind of on top of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Which is you can never rely on. You can never rely on. But we've been close to doing some crazy stuff. We've been close to, I would say, getting 6-figure fees in the past couple of years, maybe 6 times. Really? It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Over $1 million a few times as well. And there was one time that I was involved in a deal that is very scary. Very, very, very scary.
Nice. Well, 2025 is the year.
Yes. Yes.
Heard it here first.
Definitely.
So in terms of kind of getting to that sort of level, then, you know, people are probably, you know, just starting out in terms of the property sourcing. Maybe they've kind of got that momentum. How do they kind of keep leveling up within that sort of strategy?
So property sourcing is very time intensive, and you need to think about, do you want to be a self-employed sourcer, just yourself? Then you cannot go on holiday. Then you cannot get the foot off the gas at any point, or your business is going to fail, not to fail, but it's going to
suffer.
To suffer, exactly. The way that we approach is that we're building a business where it's all systemized. It's all the people that work with us, our team, they can do a lot of the work independently. We encourage them to be independent and to kind of work for themselves in a way, but giving them a lot of support and as I mentioned, taking care of the whole of the back end of the business, which is all the admin work and everything. In that way, eventually, we'll be able to create more of a management structure and get more kind of team leaders, and then a management team in place, and then make ourselves redundant, really. So that's the direction that we're going, because the other option is just keeping grinding yourself forever, really. Isn't it?
So it's bringing in a team that you can rely on to deliver. Yeah,
because many of the sources that we've known over the years, they have moved into other things because sourcing is tough. And even though it can be very lucrative, you need to keep working to continuously, isn't it? Whereas a lot of people, they start developing, or they start buying some assets and holding, and then they say, okay, I'm getting this now income every month that I don't have to do anything, and to close some deals I have to work 24/7 non-stop. So it's like when you put it on a scale, it doesn't make that much sense. So that's why we are seeing it as a business that potentially in the future we could even sell. It's not that we are going towards that direction, but you have to work towards something like that to have the option. If you don't work towards that, you will not have the option.
I suppose it's setting yourself up in the right way, isn't it? If you're focusing on the exit strategy in a way, you've got you mitigate risk if something goes on. If you lose health or something like that, you've got a team that can still sustain the business. And when you're self-employed, in most cases, you are the business.
Yeah.
Even if you've got 8 employees, it's still dependent on you turning up and delivering. So I think when you kind of push towards that exit strategy, but you're not really going to pull the trigger on it, you just know actually this is a safety net in worst case.
It's an option.
Yeah, of course.
It's an option. And now I am able to go on holiday for a few days and pretty much, not 100%, but not have to worry too much about what's going on. Whereas up to just a few months ago, that was impossible, absolutely impossible. Every trip that I went away, and I love to travel, I had to be on my phone pretty much all the time. Whereas now things are starting to evolve in a nicer way, but still I cannot take things for granted, and I need to make sure that I keep an eye on things even when I'm away. But Aidan is amazing to take a little bit more on when I'm away, and I do the opposite when he's away.
Of course, that's the benefit of having a business partnership. Obviously, you have to share the profit, but you share the workload as well.
It makes sense. Worthwhile, big time.
100%. I mean, I had to adjust from going from a business partnership to being on my own, which the holiday I had last year is probably the first holiday where I've had to work constantly. Whereas when I'd been away prior to that, I'd always relied on business partners I hadn't completely switched off because I hate doing that. But this time I was more on it than I've ever been, because I if I don't turn up, shows don't take place. So it's we've got big sponsors that I've got to turn up for now. So
absolutely,
I'm basically working for them, which is there's definitely worse jobs.
How are you finding that?
Yeah, really well. So this year we've sort of got our main sponsors sort of lined up already. We're obviously with 5 locations, having done 3 last year. It still feels a bit bizarre that we're in second year of business, and just the momentum of the business. I think there's it feels more pressure this year to sort of deliver. Last year, we could make mistakes because we were a startup. Now there's more on the line, so to speak. So it's exciting and quite stressful all at the same time. But I'm sure the team and I will hopefully deliver on what we've promised this year.
I have to say your event in Manchester was incredible. Really good. Really very, very well organized. The venue was spectacular.
Yeah.
So I have to say I was very, very impressed.
The Etihad is like perfect setup. With
incredible.
The 2 areas for the keynote areas, and then the main exhibition in the middle. It's perfect for what we need, basically. So we're there again 10th of September this year. So hopefully the same. Well, hopefully we'll have more numbers this time.
Oh, you will, I'm sure.
With more people knowing that we're here now. So that's part of the parcel, trying to grow the brand is just trying to get in front of more people. So hopefully we can do that. But it's not often I get asked questions on this podcast. And normally I'm doing the interviewing. But yeah, I suppose just sort of jumping back to the business partnership stuff, what advice, I guess, would you give to maybe other early days business partnerships that, maybe even sort of JV partners that people are looking to get into bed with one another, obviously in a business term? What advice would you give? What makes yours and Aidan's business partnership so successful?
To be honest, it's difficult to give advice in this respect, because either it clicks in an incredible way that is difficult to explain, or it just doesn't work for one way or another. I've been in partnerships before, and sometimes you feel a bit frustrated because one is pulling more than the other one. You're meant to be on the same page, but only like 70% and there is some tension in certain aspects and this and that. I think that it has to feel completely smooth and like it's meant to be, to really last as long as it needs to last, because business is a long-term thing, right? So you have to be on the same page. You have to understand each other really, really well personally, and you need to complement each other in business, but also personally. Like for example, I am more hot-headed, and sometimes I need to when I am dealing with someone and the relationship or the situation has got to a point that I'm going to just say the wrong thing. I just ask Aidan to carry on from there, because it's happened a couple of times that it's not that I screwed up, but things. I can be a little bit more forceful, and Aidan is very diplomatic, extremely diplomatic. Like under pressure, the guy, his pulse remains at 55, Whereas I get frustrated, I get annoyed if someone is unethical, or if someone just take the piece over and over and over and over. I mean, I tend to call them out, and Aidan would always say, just use these words instead, do this, do that. And sometimes I follow through with what he says, sometimes I don't. But yeah, you need to be on the same page in so many ways, right? So it's difficult to give advice. It's about getting to know this other person potentially before going into business together really well, and then test it without thinking that it's gonna be amazing. Just test it, and time will say.
Nice, I like that answer. I suppose it is just a natural coming together in a way. You can't force that attribute offset, the yin and yang, or however you want to describe it. So I get that. I think you two have got an incredible business relationship because you're both as hungry as one another, and that's a recipe for success in any format, So absolute credit to the pair of you.
Cheers, man.
In terms of, I guess, rounding this podcast off, if people want to maybe start working with yourself, how can they put themselves in the best position to sort of get involved in the investment agency and start to, I suppose, take their business success to another level?
We're always happy to collaborate with other people, definitely. We thrive on collaboration, and many of the deals that we do in partnership with other agencies and other sources, because we want everybody to win, and sometimes you have the buyer, sometimes you have the vendor. So collaborating is a win-win. It's better to get 50% of a fee potentially and doing 20 deals than getting 100% doing 3. So people that have access to stock, especially in the Northwest, any kind of stock, we have a lot of very active investors. We are happy to have a look and to give advice first and see if we can help. So we always encourage people to come to us. Let's have a conversation. Let's see what we can do, if there is anything we can do. And if not, we're always happy to introduce to the right person and signpost to the other places that they can get the the knowledge that they need to, or whatever. We're happy to share value, and I think that karma is a real thing, really. If you give, somehow you will receive even more. So always happy to help.
Amazing, great stuff. And if people want to reach out, how can they go about doing that? What LinkedIn, Instagram, what's
so LinkedIn is where we are the most active at the moment. I think Instagram we used to, not so much these days. So LinkedIn would be ideal. So yeah, happy to have a chat with anybody.
What's the best thing for them to search on LinkedIn?
Just my name, Antonio Vaquero. Cool. And they'll find me there. So otherwise, our company, Loft Property Investments, and we are there.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming on today.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot, mate.
Thank you very much for tuning in today. Obviously, a lot to unpack there from an investment agency perspective, and definitely some mindset stuff in there for sure. And of course, if you're looking to go into business with someone, some tips on how to potentially go about doing that in the right way. As I always say on every single episode, please do like and subscribe if you've actually made it this far. And of course, if you're listening to the audio version, please do leave a review. It helps the podcast. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.